Hey guys, welcome to my slightly chilly shed, but actually it's not the worst. I have a little heater. It's gonna take a few minutes to get the air a little warmer, but not bad. Just that time of year kicking in. So thanks for connecting. We're picking up where we left off. So we're gonna pick up from verse 31 in Luke 22 and we'll read to the end of the chapter, to verse 71. Let's break it down as we go again. Sometimes when we're going a little longer, it's easier to do that, and I think then we retain what we've just read to consider it before we read the whole thing and try to double back. Okay, let's first pray, and then we'll read and consider as we go. Lord, thank you. Thank you for this day, a new day. God, your mercies are new each morning, and we're so grateful for that. There's always hope in you. We don't know what lay ahead, but even this day, you could pour out new blessings, open new paths, shut doors, open doors. God, our hope is in you. You know our situations, each one of us. You know what we need, and your loving kindness goes with us, not just now, but for the rest of eternity, God, until we cross the river go through the golden gates of heaven, Jesus. So I just pray even now as we turn our attention to you, open our hearts and minds and touch our spirits, or change our spirits, draw us nearer to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so the disciples were just chatting about who was greatest right at the last meal, the Last Supper with Jesus. They get chatting about who's going to be the greatest in this kingdom. Simon. So Jesus turns to Simon Peter in this Last Supper. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, that he might sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Peter said to him, Lord, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death. Jesus said, I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny 3 times that you know me. Satan demanded to have you. Again, I think we have to be very careful how we literally think this stuff through. We have a force of good and evil, and Jesus is seeing that we're going into a dark time, and Peter's going to be tempted to deny Christ. I don't think it's Satan came up to God and said, I want to have you, I want to sift him, I want to challenge him. And Jesus said, well, okay, to a measure, but I'm going to pray, because I don't think these negotiations of God letting people, I think it's much deeper than that. We got good, we got evil, we got a battle. Jesus could see that Peter was about to be really tested, and tested right on this point of, in a sense, Peter's overconfidence that, Lord, I'm with you 100%, I'll go to the death with you. And actually, Jesus is speaking to that overconfidence. He's saying, look, you're going to be tested on that very loyalty you pride yourself in. Before the rooster crows, or before the next morning, before the dawn breaks, right, and a rooster crows, you're already going to have let yourself down in your sense of loyalty to me. But then Jesus gives him a mission, a commission. It's like he picks him up before he even falls down. He says, when you come back, I've prayed for you, Pete. You're going to get Pete. I didn't plan that, but I'm Peter, so I'm called Pete. I've prayed for you, Peter. You're going to get through this, and when you get through this, come back, strengthen your brothers. You're on mission. Shake it off. Move on. Jesus gives him mission. He forgives him before he falls. He encourages him before he's even discouraged. And he's like, I'm going to stick you back on a path here with mission to strengthen your brothers. I don't want you to lose your confidence, right? It's deep stuff. And Jesus said to them, when I sent you out with no money bag or knapsack or sandals, you remember in Luke 9, at the beginning of Luke 9 and the beginning of Luke 10, when I sent you out on these missions, right, with nothing, no money bag, knapsack, sandals, did you lack anything? They said, no, nothing. He said to them, but now, we're in a different season. Now let the one who has a money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack, and let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me. And he quotes from Isaiah 53, and he was numbered with the transgressors. For what is written about me has its fulfillment. And they said, look, Lord, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it is enough. What is Jesus really saying here? He's saying, look, we had a season here where we were like, it was a thing. We were making headway. There was mission. You remember, there's a verse in John 12:35. Jesus says, walk while you have the light before night overtakes you. And I think we have seasons in our faith in the world where we have freedoms and we need to use them. When we have light, when we have open doors, when we have ways to go to advance the gospel, we need to use them, because there are that kind of freedom and openness isn't always there. So Jesus said, remember I sent you out on mission, and it was like you didn't even need provisions, right? But now, and they were heading into a dark night, Jesus reframes the scenario. He's not literally telling them to sell their cloak and buy a sword, right? Because when they say we have 2 swords, he's like, that's enough. They're not really getting it, by the way. Because then when Peter uses his sword, which we'll see, he cuts off a servant's ear in the Garden of Gethsemane, where they come for Jesus. Jesus heals the ear and tells Peter to put the sword away. So he's not saying you need a sword. He's talking about a switch. We're going into a darkness here. You kind of have to gather up the coat you got on you, pull it around you. We're going into a valley. Buckle up. I don't, fully understand it or something, but I mean, he can't be literal. He's not telling them to go down to the market, sell their cloak, buy a sword, because he doesn't want them to use a sword. He's telling them we're going into a dark night. And he tells them, interestingly, he quotes from Isaiah 53, he says, I'm going to be numbered with the transgressors. That's a dark thing. When Jesus is associated with a villain, he's crucified and he's mocked. We see this coming. It's incredible how cruel people can get when they can get someone into the category of condemnation. If they can get them in a category if they're actually a bad person, then it's almost like people feel justified in hating, kicking, hurting, spitting, crucifying. Jesus was about to be numbered with sinners. And sure enough, the cruelty that suddenly swells up against them, people getting all their anger out. If we can call him bad, if we can get him in the bad, then we can get all our anger out on him. And sure enough, the next morning he's killed by the same people. He's mocked by the crowds that he fed, the crowds that he healed. He healed many, we're told. There were people there looking on, denying him, as it were, pulling back who he had healed. We do this to God. We do this to each other. I have turned on people that I look back and realize they'd been so kind to me. They'd given to me. And I get to a season and I get gossiping and I get angry. I've done it. I do it. Our hearts, my heart, it's dark. Okay. And he came out, and Jesus came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to the place, he said to them, pray that you may not enter in temptation. Temptation to what? Fall away, hide, protect self. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. Jesus is feeling the weight The murderers are starting to gather to come for him. His disciples don't even really know this right now. Jesus knows it. He knows he's right in the space, and the murderers are on their way. He says, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And he stayed there. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. Like, whew, and being in agony. In agony. Have you ever been in agony? Jesus was in agony. He can relate. He prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. He was standing in the place where murder would meet him, and he wasn't moving. An angel encouraged him, hold your ground. You're at the pinnacle of mission here. But the stress, the agony, Jesus could step out of the way. It's like standing in front of a train coming right for you. His knees shaking, agony, blood. Why? Because he could just step out of the way. It's different if you're caught off guard. Jesus stepped into the way of this and held his ground for you, for me, for all of humanity and history. He held steady as it approached him. That is agonizing. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said to them, why are you sleeping? Rise and pray that you may not enter into temptation. What was the temptation? I mean, sleep. The temptation was coming. It was going to be to scatter, to run, to fear. And Jesus was in the face of fear right now, like a thundering noise, just gathering force right at him. They didn't even know they're asleep. You know, and he's like, there's a temptation. It's coming, it's coming. While he was still speaking, there came a crowd, and the man called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them, Jesus' friend. He drew near to Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus said, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? The irony of that. A kiss is love. With a symbol of love, he hated on Jesus. And when those who were around him saw what would follow, they said, Lord, shall we strike with the sword? They're feeling it. And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus said, no more of this. And he touched his ear and he healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and officers of the temple and elders who had come out against him, have you come out against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you day after day in the temple, you did not lay hands on me, but this is your hour and the power of darkness. That is an ominous word. Jesus literally defined to them, this is your hour and the power of darkness. He literally tells these priests, and he said, this is your hour and it's a dark one and it's on you. This is your hour of evil. He, in their midst right here, he heals a man. He heals a man's ear. If there was ever a moment to panic and say, what are we doing coming up against this holy man, this powerful healer, pull back. Nope. Right in the face of Jesus' miracle, right in the face of Jesus' tenderness, they pursued murderously. I sometimes, when I talk to people, they're like, oh, if I could see Jesus do a miracle, I'd believe. But that, I sometimes say, but there were people who saw him do miracles and they didn't believe. There were people right in his face who saw him heal a man's ear and they killed him. How do you know that if you saw him do a miracle, you would believe? If that is your heart's disposition, you probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't. You would find some way around it. They did. Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. And Peter was following at a distance. He's already falling back, you know. And when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the light and looking closely at him, said, "This man also was with him," but he denied it, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." And a little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." And after an interval of about an hour, still another insisted, saying, "Certainly this man also was with him, for he too is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are talking about." And immediately while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Oh, man. And Peter remembered the saying of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And Peter went out and wept bitterly. We think, how could Peter deny Jesus? Listen, my friends, when your life is on the line and all it takes is a little lie, you'll do it too. I would do it too. Absolutely. When fear grips you and all you have to do is deny something, like, "Oh, no, I didn't." When fear grips me and all I have to do, I have many instances of this in my life, through my childhood, right up. Fear grips you. You're about to get in trouble. You're caught in the act, and all you got to do is deny, like, no, I'm not in this, or no, I don't know him, or I'm not with him, or boom, comes out right away. Self-preservation. And this was murder on the line. The Romans and these chief priests, they were out for blood, and Peter felt it, and it was on. And it was about death, and death was their destiny here with Jesus. This is what they wanted, and Peter felt it, and he was barely hanging on from a distance. And then he gets in the courtyard. They're like, "You too?" He's like, "No." And he feels ashamed, but we do it every day. We deny Jesus. We have moments when we can stand with him in work, stand with him in school, stand with him with our friends, just moments where we are literally directly asked about certain things, moral things. Hey, look at this dirty picture. This is whatever it is. We deny Jesus. We don't stand with him at that moment and say, "I'm with the Lord," do we? We deny him all the time. God help us. Now, when the men who were holding Jesus in custody were mocking him, look at how it's turning now. As they beat him, violence is on. They also blindfolded him and kept asking him, "Prophesy, who is it that struck you?" And they said many other things against him, blaspheming him. This is still the same dark night. From the moment they're having that meal in the upper room, here we are a couple hours later in the darkness of night. The power of darkness, Jesus said, "This is your hour." They're starting to beat him, bully him, many against one. They are coming out of murder in the air. When day came, the assembly of the elders of the people gathered together, both chief priests and scribes, and they led him away to their council, and they said, "If you are the Christ, tell us." But he said to them, "If I tell you, you will not believe." Brilliant. "And if I ask you, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man shall be seated at the right hand of the power of God." So they all said, "Are you the Son of God then?" And he said to them, "You say that I am," or "You've just said it." Then they said, "What further testimony do we need? We have heard it ourselves from his lips." Jesus said, "You have said it." I think that was just probably a way of saying, "It is as you've said." You know what I'm saying? I think it's just like, "It is as you said." In other words, yes, I am. And they said, "What other testimony do we need?" He said it. He said it. He said he is the Son of God, which to them was one with God. The son of was like self-expression, you know? So there we go. It's that's the end of chapter 22. We'll leave it there. We'll pick back up. Jesus taken to before Pilate now. They are out for blood. Grueling dark night. As he said, "This is your hour and the power of darkness." That was 22:53. Okay. Thank you, guys. We'll leave it there for today.